All right, so now we are going to move into the math lessons, and the first lesson in your packet is lesson 54, and it is about comparing fractions again, which you did last week, but this one is comparing fractions when there's 3 fractions, and that's not as easy as just comparing 2 and using the butterfly method to compare. So I'm going to show you how to find a common denominator, and I'm also going to show you how to do it on the number line, which are the 2 ways that they have you doing it in the worksheet. So let's share a whiteboard with you and take a look. So the first one is, I'm gonna use this, comparing fractions. And we're going to, the first one is finding a common denominator. All right, common denominator. Remember, denominators are on the bottom. So the first thing when we're finding a common denominator, hold on, let me do this, and I'm going to draw in purple. All right, so let's say we had the fractions 3/8 and 1/4 and 1/2. Okay, so if we're trying to find a common denominator between those 3 fractions, we need to kind of use some observation skills. I can tell that there's something with 2 and 4 and 8. There is a way to make 8s, but we won't need to worry about that. We're gonna list, the first step is to list, actually let me go to text and we'll erase this. First step is to, step 1, list the multiples, right? So if we're listing the multiples of 8 are 8, 16, right? 8, 16, 24, 32. All right. And again, you have to bear with me. I'm just learning how to use this. So I can actually use text. And the multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. There's more multiples, but I think that's all we'll need. And the multiples of 2 are, I'm actually gonna move this over a little bit. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, right? All right, if we look at our list of multiples, we have the multiples of 8, and the reason I chose those numbers because those are the numbers that are the denominators on these fractions. So we have the multiples of 8, the multiples of 4, and the multiples of 2. And if we look at that list, we want to find the smallest number that they all have in common, right? So let's look at the smallest number in our list of multiples of 8. 8 is the smallest one, right? Do these all have an 8 in them? Yes, they do. So I'm going to circle the 8 because that is the number that I'm going to use as the common denominator in my fraction. Okay, so how do we get these to have 8ths on the bottom? Well, we need to make equivalent fractions. So we need to, step 2, right? Step 2, make equivalent fractions with a common denominator. All right, so to do that, we don't need to do anything to the one that already has 8ths on the bottom. We just need to change the 1/4 and the 1/2. So how do we get the 4ths to turn into 8ths? 1/4. What do we need to multiply the denominator of 4 by to get 8? Oh, I wish I had you guys raising your hands right here in front of me. So we need to multiply a 4 by a 2 to make 8, right? All right, so we now have an 8 as our denominator, and 1 times 2 is 2 to make 2 8ths. So instead of 1/4 that we're adding, cross that 1/4 out. We are now thinking, not adding, sorry, comparing. We are thinking of it as 2 8ths. It's equal It's the same amount, 1/4 and 2/8. They are equivalent fractions. All right, and how do we make halves turn into eighths? Well, go back to purple. 1/2. We multiply, what do we multiply 2 by to get 8? Got to do the same thing at the top. So we need to multiply the 2 by 4, 2 by 4, and the 1 by 4 to equal eighths on the top, or on the bottom, I'm sorry, as the denominator, and 4 on the top, 4/8. That's the same as a half, right? If you have 4/8 of the pizza, 4 out of the 8 pieces, you ate half the pizza. So it's equal. All right, so this is no longer 1/2. We're going to think of it as 4/8. All right, there's really only one more step. So step 3, use the numerators to compare the fractions, right? So now that the denominators are all the same, we just have to look at the numerators to see which order they go in. So if your question is asking you to list them from least to greatest, smallest to largest, you're going to find the one with the smallest numerator. And so let's make our answer be in green. All right, so the smallest numerator is 2. So the smallest is 2/8. Oh, golly, that's not quite an 8. Okay, comma between your fractions. The next one is 3, right? 3/8. And your largest one be the 4/8. All right, easy peasy. All right, let's try it again one more time. Clear this drawings. Okay, so let's remember, oh, I wish I would have left the text. Okay, so your number 1 on your worksheet for line 54 is 2/3 and 1/4 and 1/6. So let's write those on the top. 2/3, you already have yours written down. 1/4 and 1/6. All right, so step 1 was find or list the multiples, right? List the multiples. So I'm gonna put step 1. All right, so the multiples of 3, let's write them. I'm gonna type them. Listing multiples. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, right? Sing your songs. All right, the multiples of 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. I think that's probably enough. And our multiples of 6. 6, 12, 18, 24, whoops, 30, 36. Okay, so now we are going to try to find the smallest. Oops, I didn't put any commas in that one. Ah, oh gosh, undo. All right, don't worry about it. I'll put a comma with a, there we go. So, there we go. So we need to, oh no, redo. Oh, bummer. Okay. Sorry. 6, 12, 18, 24. All right. We need to find the least common multiple, the smallest common multiple. So let's look and see, what number, do they have a 3 in common? No. Do they have a 6 in common? Nope. This one has a 6 and this one has a 6, but this one doesn't. A 9? Nope. A 12. I see a 12 here. Right here. I see a 12 here. And I see a 12 here. So it looks like I'm going to make all my fractions turn into 12ths. So now we got to figure out, step 2 is to make equivalent fractions with a common denominator. So 2, how do I turn 2/3? I'm going to make a different color. 2/3 turn into something with 12ths on the bottom. Well, what do I multiply 3 by to get it to turn into a 12? I multiply it by a 4, right? 3 times 4 is 12. So I got to multiply the top by 12 also. Ugh, equals equals 12ths. And 2 times 4 is 8. So 2/3 is equivalent to 8/12. So now I'm going to think about that one as 8/12. Okay, 1/4. What do I need to multiply fourths by to equal 12ths? Oh, times, sorry. So 4 times 3 is 12, right? Okay, so 1 times 3 is 3 and 4 times 3 is 12. So this is no longer 1/4, but it is 3/12. All right, 6. I know that 6 times 2 is 12, so I'm not even going to write the problem. All right, 6 times 2 is 12, which means that I got to multiply the top by 2 also to make 2. 1/6 is equal to 2/12. All right, so now I have 8/12, 3/12, and 2/12. And if I am, step 3 is to look at the numerators to compare the fractions. Step 3, I know it's gonna be in red, whatever. All right, so looking, if I'm listing them from least to greatest, I'm going to be listing them as 2/12, 3/12, and then 8/12. They're in order right now from greatest to least. So look at your, I don't have your worksheet right in front of me because it's on my computer and I have this open on my computer. So if you look at your worksheet, see if it asks you to do least to greatest or greatest to least. And we know that 2/12 is the least and 8/12 is the greatest and 3/12 is going to be in the middle no matter what. All right, so clear this page. All right. The other thing it says that you could do is to compare your fractions using a number line. So say I had a number line here with a 0 and a 1 and a half in the middle, right? Okay. So I am looking at which, let's see, I don't have in front of me which fractions it's asking you to compare. Let's just use the ones that we used in the example problem. So 3/8, 1/4, and 1/2. And we're trying to line them up again. So this time we're going to use the benchmark of 1/2 to try to compare the fractions. So we're going to say, where would 3/8 go on a number line? This is more of like a guess and check. The changing the denominator is like exact. It's going to get the exact answer. This is more of a estimate. So 3/8, is that more than a half or less than a half? And 4/8 would be equal to a half. So 3/8 is maybe just a little bit less than a half. Maybe like right here would be 3/8. Okay. And then 1/4, well, I know that 1/2 is the same as 2/4. So 1/4 is going to be in the middle between 1/2 and 0. So there's where 1/4 is going to be. And 1/2 is already listed for me. So I'm just gonna make it pink like it's there. So now I can see that 1/4 and then 3/8 and then 1/2 is the order that these fractions are going to go in. Okay, so that's using a number line and you're just gonna kind of estimate where it would be. Is it close to a half or less than a half? So say something was like, let's try this again, let's clear. And let's say we had the fractions of 5/8, 2/3, and 1/4. Okay. So we make our little number line and we put a 0 here and a 1 here and our half in the middle. Okay. All right, so 5/8. Well, oopsies. Ooh, we can do this. That's kind of fun. 5/8 is, well, 4/8 again is 1/2. So 5/8 is going to be a little bit more than a half. Look at, I got a little stamp. So I can label this one 5/8, a little bit more than a half. All right, 2/3 is a little bit more difficult. So 2/3, you're gonna have to think in your head, well, if I were to split this whole thing into thirds, and you could actually even go like this and split it in thirds. So 1/3 might be like right here, and 2/3 might be like right here. And so 2 of those thirds would be about right here. Okay, 2/3. And then 1/4, again, half is the same as 2/4. And so 1/4 is going to be a little less than 1/3. And so I'm going to put it in a different color. A fourth, oh, I'll put a little stamp, is probably going to be right between 0 and 1/2 right there. So here is 1/4. All right, so now they are in order. 1/4, 5/8, and 2/3 is how big they are. So you can either use changing the denominator, finding a common denominator. You can use putting them on a number line to compare 3 or more fractions. You can compare 2 fractions that way too, or you can use the butterfly method. You could use the butterfly method to compare 3 or more. You're just gonna have a lot more like problems to do because you're gonna have to compare and then order each one like that. And I don't know, try these out today. All right, that's lesson 54, kind of a long one.